Olá a todos, eu sou o José Neves e tenho um prazer enorme em ter comigo hoje para uma conversa sobre a tecnologia, sobre o futuro, sobre a educação, filantropia e todos os desafios das nossas economias. O John Elkann. John Elkann é alguém para mim incrivelmente inspirador. Ele tem 44 anos, penso eu, portanto é ainda mais novo do que eu. Eu penso que é um dos 2 anos mais novo que eu, é um dos líderes mais inspiradores na Europa e no mundo, como CEO e Chairman da XR. Como todos sabemos, a XR controla empresas como a Fiat Chrysler, agora Stellantis, não é, John? Incrível sucesso, parabéns desde já. E Ferrari, The Economist, marcas muito conhecidas de todos nós, como todos sabemos, e o Futebol Clube Juventus também, que é...
Um grande português.
Exatamente. E então é com grande prazer e um agradecimento muito, muito forte, porque eu sei que o John, nesta altura, como todos sabemos, com o mega merger que deu origem à Stellantis, está extremamente ocupado. Portanto, é com redobrados agradecimentos que eu o apresento. E o John fala também português, portanto podemos começar esta conversa em português, se bem que eu vou passar para inglês rapidamente, porque sei que apesar da fluência dele em português, o inglês é mais confortável. Obrigado, John, feliz ano novo, e obrigado por te juntares a nós neste evento Building the Future, um evento que estamos a participar com a Fundação José Neves, mas que é um evento da iniciativa da Microsoft e da Ativar Portugal. Portanto, como é que vês estes temas da tecnologia, do futuro? Tu estás na interseção de tudo isto, és também um investidor em empresas de tecnologia, investiste 200 milhões de dólares recentemente na Via, que é uma plataforma tecnológica para mobilidade que é incrível. Como é que tu vês? Eu vou-te fazer a primeira pergunta em português e depois passamos em inglês e também podes fazer perguntas a mim também, tornamos isto mais interativo.
Obrigado, José. Feliz ano novo para você e para vocês todos. Eu não falo bem português, mas eu gosto de falar. Então é uma oportunidade de poder exprimir na vossa língua. Eu penso que a iniciativa que a gente está fazendo hoje é uma boa iniciativa para poder falar do futuro em maneira positiva. E quando a gente olha lugares e companhias, não tem que ter medo dos mutamentos. E eu penso que a coisa mais importante é olhar como o mundo vai na frente e olhar que as oportunidades que vai dar vão ser aí se você olha isso em maneira positiva. O problema é que todo mutamento tem coisas que vão ser boas e coisas que não vão ser boas. Então tem que concentrar a atenção só aquelas que são boas. E a indústria, eu vou agora falar em inglês, a indústria of the car industry, which is an old industry. It was started in the end of the 19th century, is an industry which is going through profound changes. And if you approach it and are engaging and excited about all the novelties of products that one will be able to do, and how the cars are going to be very different than the ones that we have known from all standpoints, from how they will look, how they will be driven, how they will be powered. This is incredible, and it's incredible as an opportunity, and that is in my view what I really would like to exchange in the way we've been thinking, and to approach existing industries, it's obviously harder. So if you start from scratch, you're able to build all the building blocks of an organization and make it a 21st century organization. More difficult is taking an old organization, so a 19th century organization, and transforming it in a 21st century organization. And an industry which we also know well, which is the media industry, the newspaper industry, is again one that is in transformation. And I think that the good lesson about transformation is that it can be done. And there are all the reasons why it can be done, but the reality, it can be done. And the reason I want to stress this point is because it is always easy to say it's difficult because I am in a context which is not going to be able to change. I would very much like to be able to build a company, a new company. But the truth is that ultimately both works, and it's very much about the mindset you want to apply to technology and changes that technology provides.
That's an amazing perspective, and as you were speaking, I thought about Farfetch and how actually we are working with companies that are also century-old companies, and we have a lot of Italian partners. Some of our biggest brands, the Gucci's, the Pradas, the Valentinos. Luxury is such a huge industry in Italy. I think Italy and France really are, the origins and still the guardians of luxury in the world. And I have these conversations very often with, with the leaders of those companies. And I think, the recent pandemic has fast-tracked this digital transformation because it really accelerated movements that probably will take 3, 4, 5 years. They will still happen, but they will take longer. But it gave courage to these older organizations to embrace digital ways of thinking and operating and building brands and businesses. So I was wondering, how do you see, the current crisis as actually with all the humanitarian tragic implications it is having and it continues to have in the world, as on the other side, on the flip side, an opportunity for companies to learn from all of this, and we're all learning as every day, and it's a crisis that is so difficult to navigate, but as an opportunity to accelerate change and see how technology can build a brighter future for these companies and for the economies, because we're not talking, I think we can talk at the micro level, which is company level, but we can also talk at the country level, where we have the same challenge. We have countries that have economies that were industrial economies. Italy was an industrial-led country. Portugal was, and to a big extent still is, a very industrial-led country. How can these countries and these economies transform themselves into intellectual property, knowledge economies, knowledge societies? How are you thinking about that these days?
I think that the 2020 was a year in which we were confronted with many challenges. The healthcare challenge and the consequences of COVID on one hand, which took the priority of all our governments, and if you are a business leader with responsibilities for who works with you, that has been priority number one. On the other hand, it has also accelerated, José, as you said, a lot of what we might have thought would happen. It just happened within a year versus maybe 5, 10. And I think that the good thing about that is that it has forced to make choices. And so if I take a lesson from 2020, which can be applied at a personal level, at a company level, at a regional and a country level, is that we need to make choices, and these choices are really of where do we want to concentrate our energy, our resources, where is it more worthwhile putting the putting our future, and that for me is really very important for us, Jose, not to miss. And your city, Porto, is an example of a city that transformed itself from a very strong very strong industrial basis, and it was able to evolve. And today, also thanks to your company, it has proven also how its very high education institutions have been able to form and grow very strong talent who doesn't need to go in different places in the world to actually find ways of developing their talent, but can stay home and do incredible things, right?
Yes, absolutely, and by the way, there's so many startups that are creating a powerful ecosystem in Portugal. Companies like OutSystems, companies like TalkTask, Fitzai, etc., etc. So many others, which proves that, as you said, the education system, where this is where we can trace it all from, right? So it goes all the way, because if we didn't have great engineers and great, managers and great thinkers, we wouldn't have great companies, right? And the companies are the result of the passion and the work and the talent that is applied to their missions. And I think that leads me to the other topic in our conversation, which is education, and how so we know these economies need to be transformed, and we know companies need to be transformed, and we know that digital. We look at at the S&P 500. Actually, you had a competitor, Tesla, coming in to form part of, controversially for some, to form part of that car index. But if you look, even if you take Tesla out, if you look at the top in terms of market cap, the value creation that companies such as Google and Facebook and Microsoft and all these other, Apple, etc., have created. I think it's clear, it's unquestionable that digital is reinventing the way economies work and companies work, and therefore we all need to adapt, and the education system needs to adapt. So my question to you is how do you think education can contribute to that movement? And do you think countries like in Southern Europe, Italy, Portugal, do you think we're doing the right things at the right speed? We should do different things, or maybe faster. How do you see the challenges?
Yeah, I think that, and you know this very well. If you're doing the right things, if you can do them faster, it's better, and that is definitely something that we all need to push in making sure that we accelerate what has positive outcomes. And education is by far the biggest contributor to progress. What is difficult in Europe in general, where we have the highest education worldwide, so the actual quality of our education system and the quality of students is the highest in the whole world. The ability of converting that talent into enterprises and into creation of economic activity and employment, which is ultimately the responsibility of companies and the responsibility of entrepreneurs, is something that we need to do more and better. And you cannot teach to be an entrepreneur, as you well know, José. There's no school or university that teaches you what you have been able to do. And so it is on us to really try and make sure that we can stimulate and we can share our experiences and we can contribute and help with courage. Because if there was something that we might be lacking, and this is overall in Europe, not only in our countries, in the south of Europe, is courage. And I might argue that maybe in our countries, we probably have more courage than in other European countries.
It's brilliant. So how? So you are leading, industries like the motor industry, cars, also media, but also a global investor and a global tech investor. In your core sectors of car manufacturing and news publishing, these are maybe the two sectors that are, more in need of very fast transformation, aren't they? Because in terms of media, you've had digitization of media was completely, well, not completely, but significantly digitized. It's something I always say that you cannot download a pair of shoes or a dress, right? So fashion will always be slower, and there will always be a physical element, and that's why we still believe in physical retail, and we're helping brands with Farfetch to bring physical retail to a different level of experience. But media, for the most part, can be fully digitized. So that is a continuing challenge. And in terms of the car industry, obviously moving to electric vehicles and moving to a different way of designing and a different product cycle, different brand perceptions from consumers and the way you build brands. You have some of the most fantastic, maybe the most fantastic car brand in the world, Ferrari, who you very, masterfully took to the 21st century and did an IPO and are doing very exciting things with that company, as we all know. But the way consumers are perceiving brands is also changing, isn't it? So, and you are a brand owner as well, right? The industrial assets are less important than sometimes than the brand assets and intellectual property. So how do you see, how do you see all of that coming to fruition in the next 5 years and especially in Europe, right? And can Europe be really the place? And I always defend this because I think you don't need to be in the Silicon Valley and you don't need to be in US to have great tech companies. And similarly, you can have fantastic stories of transformation and innovation and revolution in Europe. And you have companies, that are revolutionizing their industries, such as I'm thinking, Spotify in Sweden and so many others in Europe. So how do you see that? Do we have the talent? Do we have the courage? Do we have the leadership together to really make those leaps?
We definitely have, and I'm very optimistic. I think it's important to make the distinction of what is in transformation. So media and the car industry are two examples. And what that means is that you need to run very fast and make the right choices of where the future goes and making also the choices of where you don't want to be. And I think that it's difficult. And we have in Europe, we have very old industries and very old companies. And so that challenge is one that we definitely can take and win and meet. But it does require making very clear choices. And as I mentioned before, Jose, 2020 helped in making choices. On the other hand, I also believe that new companies are in formation. And if I think about our two most recent acquisitions, one is in a company called Via, which is a tech company based within it's within the transportation sector, so at large cars, and it's a tech-enabled company which has a very strong capability in technology. So that's where the strength lies. The other one is a luxury brand company, Chinese. It's the oldest. It only has 10 years old, but it's the oldest and the most prestigious luxury brand in China. And we have global aspirations for it. And there again, it is important for that company and for the brand it has to be able to transpire for it to have great products. And where you
we should have a side conversation on that one.
And
with Farfetch, for
and
sure.
and I think, Jose, France and Italy, and as you well know, are places where the skills exist, and so there's a lot of knowledge that will come from it, and a lot of good things that we can do together with Farfetch.
Definitely. One last question. In terms of the Fondazione Agnelli, when I read about your foundation and we spoke the last time we spoke, it struck me that it is a very old foundation, right? It was 1966, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But it was very visionary, because from the onset, it was really about rethinking Italy, right? Rethinking Italian, economics and education, etc. But also applying data and research to that, not just opinions, but actual a lot of research, social research going into that effort that you can then share and as a catalyst. And that is very similar to the way in the Fundação José Neves we're thinking, obviously in a much more humble way, much smaller way than you guys, but the way that we're thinking also on how can we provide information, fact-based information, so that people can make decisions, and then how can we come to the country with initiatives, with actual initiatives that can help on the side of education. So how do you see that the role of the Fondazione Agnelli in all the things that we spoke until now in this effort of transformation?
Fondazione Agnelli purpose is really to contribute to Italy's future and its development. And in order for us to be more effective, we have decided more than a decade ago to focus only on education. And the reason we've done that is really because of the belief we have that more talented people we can provide education to, more young Italians, girls and boys can and can be inspired in learning, more they will be able to contribute for their lives and for their country. And that's a very strong belief we have. And the way we carry that forward is, on one side, with research, and our research is, as you said, fact-based. So how can we think and imagine and conceive with data, with creativity, and then how we do. So, for example, one of the most recent projects, we put a lot of research on how schools, the actual physical schools, should be. And then we built a school in order to prove that the thinking
That's amazing.
made for it to be applied. And that is something we, as a family, we take great pride about the work we do with Fondazione Agnelli, and our more recent involvement, José, is really to be close to students during this year who weren't able to study as others would because they lacked computers, they lacked connectivity, they lacked families following them. And that's what we need to be very careful, José, is that all what the future can provide is great, but we need to make sure that it is possible for everyone to have access if they want to. And this is what we've been putting a lot of efforts in, is really with what we've lived through in 2020, to make sure that who was left behind in terms of their school and learning at distance, we could create programs and ways for them to get back to where they should be and to where other students are.
That's an amazing initiative. I read your materials about it, and I think it is so true that we tend to take for granted that everyone has internet access, everyone has a quiet room where they can study and attend remotely, and everyone has a family that is supportive of a studying environment. But that's not true, right? There are many kids that don't have these three things, and they, this year and until vaccination is rolled out for a continued period of time, will be another very difficult year for parents and for children. So I really applaud this initiative, which we're keen to learn also from our foundation, to see if we can apply some of these learnings. So we will continue to talk on that front. So with that, thank you, John. I know you are incredibly busy, and you have a million things going on. So we really deeply appreciate your participation in this quick chat. And I know that's going to be very inspiring for everyone listening to us. So with that, thank you. Grazie mille.
Obrigado, abraço e parabéns para tudo o que você e a Fundação estão fazendo.
Muito obrigado. Obrigado, John. Abraço.
Abraço.